This is Sunday, July 3rd, 2005, and we're here at the American Legion Post 72, Warnecke Mark in Saugerties. And today we have Colonel Warnecke, who served with the 27th Division.
27th, well, my parent organization upon mobilization was the 27th Brigade. We actually served with 1st Division.
1st Division, okay. In Iraq and recently returned from there. And also here this morning with us is Kate Thornton, who's handling our technical end of it, and also our task commander, Alan Wojcicki, who's handling the camera, and I'm Bill Payne. So good morning, Colonel. Thank you very much. See you. I'm going to ask you where you drafted, or did you enlist?
I enlisted in 1975.
What unit did you enlist in?
I enlisted in active duty in the United States Army for Alaska, actually, to be stationed in Alaska, in 172nd Arctic Mountain Light Infantry.
And where were you living at the time you joined?
Saugerties.
Why did you join?
I don't know. I grew up during Vietnam, so I guess I always had the mindset that service was something that was going to happen upon completion of high school. Of course, Vietnam ended around that time, so that was no longer an issue. But with that mindset, and always wanted to go to travel to Alaska, so the active Army offered me an opportunity to enlist and go to Alaska and stay there, so that's what I did.
Other particular reason why you joined the Army as opposed to any other branch?
No, not really. Again, I think the Alaska deal was what really cinched it for me, because I had the opportunity with the Army to go to Alaska. There was no other branch that would really guarantee that opportunity to be in Alaska.
You recall your first days in service, like in boot camp? What was that like?
That was a culture shock. And I'm sure everybody says it. You know, it was a lot tougher back then than it is now. But it was different then than it was now. But once I realized what the whole game was, you know, break down individuals, and mold them into a cohesive team, the way the Army saw things to be done, then it was actually kind of enjoyable. In fact, humorous at times. Just had to remember not to laugh out loud.
Where did you go?
Fort Jackson, South Carolina for basic, and Fort Polk, Louisiana for infantry training, which was about the last class that went through Fort Polk at the end of Vietnam.
And you mentioned that you got through it okay, no great problems. Do you remember your instructors, and what were they like?
They were tough but fair, I felt. They did their job, which was to mold a bunch of young individual men that were not necessarily very disciplined into a disciplined, cohesive team.
So you got through it okay?
Yep. Okay.
And you eventually served in war, or what war did you serve in?
The most recent one, OIF 2, Operation Iraqi Freedom 2.
Prior to that?
I was in Central America, semi-war, I guess you would call it down there. Honduras, very short period of time.
So Iraqi Freedom, and where exactly did you go while you were serving?
Our area was located, if you looked at the Sunni Triangle on a map, our area was right dead center in the heart of the Sunni Triangle. When we originally got there, southern boundary was northern provinces, or northern suburbs of Baghdad, Baghdad province, Tigris River on the east, up to LSA Anaconda, logistics support area Anaconda, which is around Balad, just south of Samara, and then west to the Tartar Reservoir, just north of Fallujah.
What was it like when you first arrived there? How did it seem to you?
Hectic. We arrived, of course, everybody goes through Kuwait. You don't go directly into Iraq. Pick up your additional equipment. In our case, that was additional vehicles and everything else. We were air assault battalion, so we were kind of light on vehicles to begin with, so we had a lot of additional vehicles to pick up. We were actually one of the last units in for the 1st Infantry Division, which is the division that we worked under. Most of the units had been there 2 weeks when we got there, so we were kind of on the accelerated program of drawing our equipment, getting everything out of port, because we had shipped the majority of our equipment by sea lift, accounting for all our vehicles, which is no small task, all our connexes, which we had about 40 connexes for the battalion. Just finding that stuff in the port was a monumental task. But once we got that organized, got the connexes ready to be shipped forward, because we didn't take those with us, got the vehicles ready to include putting whatever additional armor we could, scrounge and find anywhere on the vehicles that weren't up armored. Zeroed all our weapons, ran through some rehearsals, finalized our order for the approach march and for the initial occupation of our area of operations, and then crossed the berm in about 10 days into Iraq, which is always a unique feeling when you cross that berm and the whole unit goes lock and load. This is the real stuff now.
And what was your actual job assignment? What were you doing at that time?
I was task force. I was a battalion commander for the 2nd Battalion, 108th Infantry, and then all battalions were task force organized over there. So in other words, I gave up some soldiers, and I took some. I got attached to me some soldiers from other units, some tank platoon, infantry platoon, Bradley platoon, which I didn't have, to give me some heavier vehicles, and gave up some of my air assault soldiers to units that could use some more dismounted skills to other task force.
Did you see combat, Colonel?
Oh, yes.
Would you share some of that with us, please?
Well, it's, as everybody knows, I'm sure, the Iraqi war is an insurgency war. So the majority of it is counterinsurgency operations, hit-and-run tactics on the insurgents' part, and suicide bombers, although we tended to limit the suicide bombers in our area through an aggressive campaign of making it unsuccessful for them to try to utilize them. So they didn't really want to waste their suicide bombers in our area, because they tried it, and every time they tried it, it was a waste. They didn't accomplish anything. In April of 2004, things escalated. It was for about a week to 10 days. It was pretty much what you would call a traditional war. Multiple contacts every day. The enemy was, rather than just hitting and running or just blowing an IED and firing a few shots from an RPG or heavy machine guns, was actually conducting complex ambushes with engineering obstacles, mortar fire, RPGs, heavy machine guns, mines, IEDs, all in the same ambush sites, actually trying to overrun and hold pieces of terrain and key infrastructure buildings. So that was a very intense time for us.
Did you have many casualties in your unit?
From my original battalion, we had 3 KIAs, one of which was with our task force. The other 2 were with other task forces at the time they were killed. And by my recollection, I think we had 34 Purple Hearts wounded soldiers. 2 of those were double Purple Hearts, so they were same person wounded twice.
As we're on this subject, we were at a flag ceremony a while back, and you told the story of this fellow who was an African immigrant who was in your unit. Could you share that with us today, please?
Specialist Sabun Frederick Akantadi was from Nigeria. He had always wanted to come to the United States, go to school here, and ultimately become a citizen here and stay here. He managed to do that. He managed to get here on a student visa, attended college in New York City. I don't recall exactly what his degree in. It was accounting field or something to that nature of business. When he completed school, he got a job with a pretty prestigious accounting firm in New York City, investment firm rather, in New York City. 9/11 happened, and he felt that he owed this country something, so he walked down to the nearest recruiter he could find, which happened to be a National Guard armory down the street, and enlisted. He went over with us. He and 8 other soldiers were not citizens, U.S. citizens at the time we mobilized. We managed through my sergeant major and another officer that's in the Guard who works for INS to get these guys in the accelerated program to get them their citizenship, because we only felt it was the right thing to do. They're going to fight for their country. They ought to be citizens of that country. So we did naturalize 8 of our soldiers, including Specialist Akantadi, just before we deployed. He served with my Alpha Company, which is out of Skill and Leeds, and he was killed in an ambush in Mushada, Iraq, which is about 30 miles north of Baghdad, October 28th, 2004. But he died a U.S. citizen. The whole notification process was very difficult. I got to thank the United States Marine Corps and the embassy staff in Lagos, Nigeria, for the work they did. I was back and forth on satellite phone with them over about 2 days. They actually had to run a combat reconnaissance patrol to locate the family, and then on another patrol to go out and notify the family of the casualty. So that was kind of a non-standard casualty notification in that case.
Thank you, sir. Could you tell us some of your other most memorable experiences during that time?
Well, getting shot at is always a memorable experience, especially your first few times. Watching, for me, from my standpoint as a senior officer commanding, watching young soldiers grow up and mature in combat and how they handled it, and grew up rather quickly. But going from no matter what your training is, of course, as you know, probably the first time you get shot at, your initial reaction is just to get away from whoever's shooting at you so you don't get shot at anymore, which was the natural reaction of some of our young soldiers. Yeah, they returned fire and everything, but they were not intent on maneuvering and destroying the enemy. They were more intent on breaking contacts so they didn't get killed their first couple of contacts. But you could see that change rather rapidly. Usually one type of contact like that, and then they would realize that the smart thing to do was to maneuver on and destroy the enemy so that he didn't have the opportunity to shoot at you again, because if you kept leaving him there to survive, then he would just keep shooting at you day in and day out. Watching those soldiers mature into combat-hardened soldiers was it was satisfying, if I can use that term, for me as a commander, having taken them through training and having trained with a lot of them for years prior to that as a guard unit. Some of them, I didn't command the 2nd of the 108 until about 2 weeks before its mobilization. I commanded the sister battalion. But about half the soldiers in the 2nd of the 108 were from my original battalion. So having trained with them for years and years and years, and seeing them mature rapidly and accomplish their mission in combat was very satisfying. As a reserve component soldier, as a National Guard soldier, I think it was very satisfying for me to prove to the active duty that we could do our job as well as any active duty unit. And in fact, those are some of the accolades that we received as a unit. There are good units and bad units, whether you're active or reserve, but we proved, in my mind, I know we did, and I know in the division commander's mind and the brigade commander's mind, that a reserve component combat arms unit is perfectly capable of doing its job in combat and doing it well.
Your unit received awards. You personally received awards and medals, citations?
Bronze Star, Combat Infantry Badge, and of course all the normal campaign ribbons.
How did you get the Bronze Star, sir?
That's for my overall service as a task force commander, for the accomplishments of the task force.
Can you tell us something about actual battle planning? You mentioned a little bit before about what the enemy was doing.
Battle planning was very decentralized, which is where it needed to be. Most of the intelligence, actionable intelligence, was developed by the units on the ground, not being fed down from higher, although there were some trends and indicators on the more strategic scale that were funneled down from higher, i.e., forecasts around a religious holiday that we could expect to see an increase in activity and where that might occur, that kind of stuff. But the majority of the planning occurred at the lower levels. I think there was we had a major portion of our operation was to keep the MSR, the main supply route, clear in our area as it fed into LSA Anaconda logistics support area, which is the largest logistics support area in Iraq, and to keep that site from being mortared and rocketed on a regular basis, which it was. We were one of 7 task forces that were arrayed around LSA Anaconda and had that as part of our responsibility. The non-combat folks that ran LSA Anaconda were tended to be micromanagers and wanted to task the combat units with specific things, i.e. watch this piece of ground or hold this bridge or whatever, thinking that that would best keep them secure and keep them from getting shot at. I managed to convince them that was not the way, at least in my task force's case, to have us do business. To simply tell me that you didn't want to be shot at was good enough for me, and allow me the freedom of maneuver to go out and develop our own battle plans on actionable intelligence to interdict that. For example, we would often pick up through what we call human sources, human intelligence from the local Iraqis, information that would lead us to caches that were being moved into the area to shoot at the LSA. Mortars, mortar rounds, rockets, rocket systems, mainly 57mm and 120mm rockets, and get them. Sometimes we'd hit them and take them down 30 or 40 kilometers away from the LSA. Well, to the people on the LSA, that might not have seemed like we were helping them out, but of course we were helping them out. We were helping them out the best way possible. We were getting the stuff before it ever got within range of the LSA, as opposed to waiting for it to shoot and then trying to react to it and go after it. So that was a big part of it. Keeping the MSR open. We were very proactive about that. I'm proud to say that if you looked at a situational map when we left and looked at the MSR, which was Highway 1, the main highway that runs north-south through Iraq, if you looked at the enemy incidents along the MSR, there was our area with a few incidents, and then there was north and south with lots of incidents, which was a direct result of primarily my Delta company, which was my mounting company, traditional mounting company, and keeping that route clear along the Bradley and tank platoon. I mean, we were very proactive about that. If we kept getting hit from a certain area, we would work on getting intelligence to drive task force level operations, major coordinate search operations, ambushes, counter ambushes, to remove the threat. And we were very successful. We cleared the MSR back. We cleared all the brush, old buildings and everything back, anywhere from 100 to 300 meters from the edge of the road to make it more difficult for them to go out and put IEDs in. Tried not to become reactive, but in some cases you do as they develop new tactics. When it became too difficult for them to bury IEDs along the highway because they would get discovered and killed, and they resorted to placing them in non-standard platforms, i.e. abandoned cars and things like that. So we countered that by just telling the locals, if your car is abandoned on the road, we're going to assume it's got explosives in it, and we will treat it as such, and we will destroy it. So the incidence of abandoned cars around along the highway tapered off very quickly, and the ones we did find, we did blow. Then they started to they tried 2 incidents of suicide bombers in our area, both of which we defeated, with no casualties inflicted on us. One we defeated directly on the MSR, and one was in town at the city council building, and that was actually defeated by our ING soldiers. We had about 250 Iraqi National Guard, which are now Iraqi Army. They've rolled it all into one organization. Soldiers that worked for us were attached to me. We were responsible for training and equipping them, and I'm very proud of the fact that they defeated that suicide bomber as he accelerated at the building and actually shot him before he got into the building and detonated prematurely. You know, there were some civilian casualties, but nothing like there could have been if they hadn't reacted properly. So that was a good example of Iraqi National Guard, Iraqi military doing their job.
Earlier this year, we had a conversation at SOS, which is an organization from Saugerties that's been sending goodie bags over to the troops over there. And you mentioned there came a time when the enemy decided to start targeting Iraqi people, and that brought the Iraqis a little more onto your side. Can you just tell us a little more about that, please?
Yeah, that seemed to pick up. We actually pulled out of the country right at the end of December. The elections, as you know, were the end of January, but that whole process building towards the elections started probably back in September of 2004. And that's when they started targeting Iraqis. They started targeting polling places and Iraqis that appeared to support the elections in an effort to break the will of the people to participate in the democratic process. But as everybody knows now, that was a failure on their part, and it was an error on their part, because in fact what it did, I think, is drove more Iraqis, number one, to provide intelligence against the insurgents, number two, it just kind of ticked some of them off, and they said they're going to vote anyway just because these people are telling me I can't.
How did you keep in touch with your family?
Primary method was, for myself and all soldiers, was through email. We also had some phones. We had, what was it, 20 phones, I believe? Yeah, 20 phones on our base. We had our own base, our forward operations base, Orion, which was my task force and an engineer company that worked with us that was housed there. And we had a bank of 20 computers and 20 phones for contacting home.
What was your food like?
It was Army food. Yeah, I mean, it was nothing special, but it was sufficient to survive, that's for sure.
Did you have plenty of supplies?
Yes, we didn't really want for anything.
Did you feel pressure or stress?
Well, of course you feel pressure or stress when you're in combat, yes, but nothing insurmountable.
Anything you did in particular for good luck?
No, not really.
How do people entertain themselves?
We managed to get satellite TVs. When we first arrived at our forward operations base, it was very, as we would put it, austere. You know, it was the things you would probably be familiar with, like burn shitters.
Oh yeah.
Mix diesel with it and pull it out and burn it. That, you know, homemade field showers, and a tank tied or somehow suspended in the air just so you get up in the air, and just gravity feet so soldiers could take showers. We took that and through a lot of work by my sergeant major, my executive officer, and my logistics officer, and turned it into a very livable situation. Improved the bathrooms. We went from porta potties to, by the time we left, they were in the process of bringing trailer toilets in and trailer showers in that were all hooked up, just like a normal bathroom, really, and spotting them around all around the base, so no soldier had to walk more than 100 meters or so to get to one. And along the same lines, we managed to get TVs for basically every bunker. We lived at an old Iraqi Air Force ammo storage area. So they had the traditional bunkers that you'd be familiar with that were probably, they varied in size, but I would say most of them were about 50 feet wide and maybe 300-400 feet long. Basically, enough room in most of them that you could house a platoon plus in there. And that's where most of the soldiers lived. We fixed those up, painted them, put air conditioners in them, TVs in them, refrigerators in them, got them grills for each one so that when they came back they could watch TV, put a DVD in, or watch satellite TV because we got satellite hookups, barbecue some burgers if they wanted to, because we managed after a while to get a freezer trailer brought down to our base, and we frozen food we stockpiled in the freezer trailer, both in case the situation escalated and we didn't have the ability to run logistics patrols, and as a benefit to the soldiers, so that we weren't tied to normal feeding times from the logistics patrols that we'd run down from the mess halls at Anaconda, because that's how we got our normal food, was run from the mess halls at Anaconda. So when they came in at 2 o'clock in the morning after being out for 2 days, they wanted to have a couple burgers. They could fire up their grill and go grab some burgers or some ice cream or that kind of stuff and do it. But, the TV was, back to your original question, was the primary thing. We also got some visitors through USL. The Soprano cast came over and stayed with us one night. WWF wrestlers, which I don't follow wrestling, so I don't remember their names, but a bunch of them came over and spent some time with the soldiers. Miller Catfight girls were there. I think there was one other group. Yeah, there was some rock group that's a little bit too modern for me to even remember what their name was. But there were groups like that that toured around Iraq, and that helped. That was a nice break for the soldiers too. And it was good for the soldiers to see that those kind of people were actually willing to come into the combat zone and assume some risks to visit them.
And did you have any leave while you were?
Yes, we managed to get every soldier in the battalion. I believe this division got to 100%, the entire division. Unlike OIF 1, got R&R. There were a few that didn't take it, and that was strictly their choice for various reasons. I think we only had 5 or 6, and I approved them myself. I didn't want somebody not taking R&R for wrong reasons.
Was R&R back to the States, or was it?
You could go wherever you wanted to go. They would, the government would pay to fly you. Well, everybody left from where we were to Kuwait, from Kuwait to Germany, Rhine-Main, and then from Rhine-Main back over to either Atlanta, Houston, or Los Angeles were the 3 major airports in the United States. But you could step off at any point from Germany on and go wherever you wanted to go. I had soldiers that went and visited their homelands in Europe that had never been to Europe, but the majority of them went home.
Did you, where did you travel yourself while you were in the service overall?
Oh, geez. Lots of places. On active duty, of course, like I said, I was stationed in Alaska and then Colorado. I've been to Germany, Iceland, Austria, Italy, Africa, Central America, Canada, that counts.
Do you recall a particularly humorous event that occurred during the time you were in the service? And along with that, were there pranks that troops played on each other, that type of thing?
Oh yeah, there were pranks, lots of pranks that troops played on each other. But you try to make sure that those pranks don't have any potentially fatal consequences in combat. But I don't know, I guess one of my most humorous ones is, I guess you had to be there, maybe it won't seem humorous without being there. The first time First time I had an IED go up against my vehicle, and I had my sergeant major in the back seat, which I swore I would never do. I'd never put him in the same vehicle with me, because I didn't want to run the potential of losing both of us at the same time. But we were up into Crete, and I did, for some reason, threw him in the back of my vehicle, and he was sleeping in the back, which he wasn't supposed to be doing. And to be honest with you, I was nodding a little up front, too, because it had been a long couple of days. And we got IED'd, and I mean, we were just totally engulfed in the black smoke. Well, he was kind of face smashed against the window in the back left seat, and I'm yelling IED and throwing orders out on how I want to maneuver all the vehicles, and he's just back there, where? There's no IED, where? I mean, we're just completely engulfed in this black smoke, and he's back there saying he doesn't see where the IED is. I mean, he can't. Besides, come over to our side of the vehicle, we got shrapnel in ours.
What did you think of your fellow officers and soldiers?
They were excellent. The philosophy I lived by was to be a leader was not necessarily to be a friend. Friendship was something in combat that you needed to check at the border. And I told all my junior leaders that if you tried to lead by friendship, which is what I saw as a potential risk with a guard unit, because they have been together so long, a lot of these guys. But if you tried to lead by friendship, you'd probably kill them by friendship. You needed to be a leader first and worry about being a friend later. And I told all my guys, if I bring every one of you home and you all hate me, I did my job. If I bring every one of you but one home and you all love me, I didn't do my job. So, but they performed very well. You have, in the reserves, you tend to have a lot of guys that were active duty, were very experienced from the military standpoint. And then the other thing you have is a lot of experiences non-military that are useful skill sets to have, especially in a war, in a counterinsurgency war. You know, I had prison guards, so when I had to run my own detention facility, I didn't have any problem. You know, this was not a new thing. We weren't reinventing the wheel here, and we had prison guards that were perfectly capable of running a small detention facility and taking care of prisoners for us. While there were contract electricians and stuff available to fix things, I had electricians, so if I had an immediate need to fix something electrical, I could lean on an electrician. You know, when we're fixing up, when the soldiers were fixing up their bunker areas, if they wanted to build whatever walls or whatever, you know, we had carpenters and plumbers. And we had all those skill sets. Cops, you know, I had a lot of cops, anywhere from New York City cops to state troopers. I think I had 8 state troopers with me. So a lot of counterinsurgency operations are kind of similar to, you know, not everyday police work, but you know, the raids and stuff like that are very similar to it. Those skill sets, having all those skill sets, they were great. Maintenance guys, you know, I was as a light air assault infantry battalion going into combat, I only had 8 maintenance guys for 150 vehicles. I managed to acquire 4 more maintenance guys, bringing me up to about 12. Most battalions over there with the same vehicle density would have 30 or 40 maintenance guys. But I was also able to, when I needed to, you know, grab some of my guys that were mechanics in the civilian world and throw them in. And my mechanics did an outstanding job. We had probably the highest operational readiness rate in vehicles in the first ID area. I mean, they would literally rebuild a blown-up vehicle from the frame up to get it back on the road, because they knew there wasn't another one sitting there waiting to take its place. It was either that one or none.
Did you keep a personal diary, Colonel?
No, I started to, but then that kind of fell by the wayside. Sounded like a good idea going in.
I think I page 1 and 2
Yeah.
about it. Do you recall the day your service ended or your deployment, I guess?
Yeah, we moved everybody back up to LSA Anaconda to fly out of there. And of course, we weren't the only one leaving then, so it was kind of LSA Anaconda was a very busy spot, which concerned me because it was a prime target. And I went through some issues with our families. One of the problems with the electronic world, and that being our primary method of communication, is operational things are very easy to lose control over. i.e. a soldier comes and picks up the phone and he's telling somebody what's going to happen tomorrow or what happened today, and some of that information is classified and shouldn't be shared. Well, we got a leak out about when we were flying out of LSA Anaconda, which I promptly got a hold of our family readiness group coordinator, a woman named Tracy Hanshoe back here, who did an outstanding job for me back here with the families in the States, and asked her to put out to the families that, you know, putting that information out, because it was on the news back here, what day we were flying out of Iraq was asking to be shot down, asking to have a C-130 shot down. Because there's nothing the insurgents would have loved to do more than shoot down a plane load of soldiers that are getting ready to leave Iraq. Their whole time is over with. Now all they got to do is fly out and shoot them down there. Fortunately, I told you get on a plane, get on a plane, and the families understood that. I said, you'll hear from us when we get to Kuwait. Then everybody can call home and tell you when to meet them at Fort Drum.